Excited to be with my special guest on the Extraordinary Sports podcast, Bryan Jean-Pierre, former NFL Carolina Panther. Bryan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely, man. Definitely appreciate the opportunity.
So, Bryan, long before you found yourself in the NFL and having a successful football career, you were born in South Florida. Your parents are both from Haiti. I want to know what initially attracted you to the game of football, and when did you fall in love?
So I would say that would start mid-high school. I grew up, involved in a lot of musical instruments. I played the piano, played the cello.
Oh, wow.
So I really didn't have time for any extracurricular activities after school. But then I started getting involved with sports, so I started off playing basketball initially at my church, and I actually played really well. And I live in a very Hispanic-dominant area in Atlanta here when I was growing up, so I grew up playing soccer as well.
Wow!
Yeah, so I played soccer and played the cello pretty much growing up until I think I knocked on my dad's door in like 6th grade and wanted to play football in middle school, but my dad wouldn't let me because my grades weren't where he wanted them to be. So I actually didn't start playing football till sophomore year in high school, and that's really when things started kind of kicking off.
Now, because I love asking this question, you obviously having now a multi-sport background, how much did that contribute to your style of play as a football player, especially on the defensive side of things? Obviously I watched guys like Antonio Gates. They use boxing out. He uses pivoting to get open on offense. Were you able to splash in footwork in soccer or positioning in basketball into your craft in the sport of football?
I think subconsciously, yes. It's never something I ever focused on or ever noticed. But kind of looking back and exactly the tools that you use to be successful at the game of football, depending on what position you're in. I definitely do think soccer with the footwork, as well as just being able to stop and go, speed, agility, etc.
Right.
As well as for the basketball setting, very similar setting, change of direction, boxing out, and then also mentality. Like those sports right there are very independently dominated sports. So usually one person got the halo around their head during that sport. So the guy in soccer who has the ball, he's the main guy, or the guy in basketball who's coming down the lane with the ball is the main focus. So being able to kind of get that individual mentality and perfect my craft, because I know I've got other members depending on me, and then transitioning to a sport where there are 11 people on the field and everybody kind of brings their forces together. I don't know, it really kept my standard pretty high when I was training for sports as well as when I was playing games.
Now, did your position choose you on the football field, or did you choose your position?
The position chose me because initially I thought I was going to be playing quarterback.
Oh, wow! So did you? Let me ask: when you played basketball, were you a point guard then? Were you a natural Magic Johnson, Johnny Stockton?
No, unfortunately, no. I was a center. Unfortunately, it's been a gift and a curse. I've always been bigger than everybody around me. So most general people, when you play basketball, they just, he's big, put him in the middle.
Right.
I always played in the middle because of my size. But when I was always training with football, I would always train with cornerbacks, linebackers, running back. I'd always train with the guys much smaller than me because all my friends were typically smaller people. So I actually was always training outside of my position, but because I was big, everything that I learned outside of my position made my position a lot easier than it would be if I was around a bunch of guys that are kind of bigger or maybe sluggish or, things like that. I was more focused on different things than other people around me.
But now that you got taken out of the quarterback, ideal situation, the fact that you thought like a quarterback, did that help you as a pass rusher and someone that was trying to get to the quarterback because you were of that mindset?
It wasn't long enough for me. I was very young in the game, and it was just one of those positions. I went to quarterback because I went out on the football field, and one of my friends went to quarterback, and I wanted to be next to him.
That's awesome.
I didn't thought it out. I didn't find quarterback. I just was like, well, where are you going? He was like, well, I'm a quarterback. I'm like, well, I'm a quarterback too. And I just kind of rode with him until I got cut from being a quarterback. So I just kind of trickled down from quarterback to running back to, okay, this guy maybe needs to be on defense.
Right.
So start off with safety, the linebacker. Linebacker was okay, but I was just far bigger than all the linebackers. So the next position is, well, put him on the line.
Right.
And then defensive end, defensive tackle, I was just able to play both of them. It was interchangeable.
Now, anyone that knows football, and I was a backup corner freshman year, and that was the end of my career, so I can't say I know the X's and O's too well, but I do know as a fan that obviously the game is won and lost in the trenches. So take me through the game within the game that is in the trenches. What goes on play by play from a physical standpoint to a mental standpoint, and how pivotal is your role on that line to basically make sure your team is going to have the outcome you want at the end of the game?
The game is definitely won in the trenches, in my opinion. I don't think I really grasped onto that concept until I got to college. Because in my high school, it was more everybody was just kind of whoever could do what they need to do to get to the quarterback. There wasn't necessarily a scheme. We didn't really understand our roles within the system of the defense and how a D-lineman affected the linebackers, who then affected the cornerbacks, who affected the safeties, who then affected the momentum for the offense. All that didn't connect just yet. So we were just out there doing whatever we needed to do, steer off of raw talent, and however we could get there, we got there. Not until college where I really started understanding, oh, this is my role. You know, you want me to take on this double team, which frees up the linebacker, which allows him to come downhill a little bit faster, post a little bit more pressure on the quarterback, which then will affect the quarterback's throwing positioning, which will therefore, when he throws the ball, gives maybe the linebacker or the cornerback a slight advantage because the quarterback's under pressure, which then might cause an interception or pass deflection. Then I started making sense to my role.
I got you. So all those advanced Madden controls, the left trigger, circle, that all came once you went to William and Mary and got it a lot more down to a science.
Exactly. We started finessing the craft, and now it was no longer raw talent. Now it was talent that we were trying to make refined.
Now, obviously, Florida, highly talented state, especially for football. I'm sure it was competitive from high school on. So when you were in that competition at that level and then to the next level, when did your belief level, or was it always there that you believed you could get to the highest level, which was the NFL, and compete with those guys?
So I actually grew up in Atlanta, though. I was born in South Florida, but I want to say first, second grade, we moved to Atlanta, and I've been in the Atlanta football game growing up the entire way. So
competitive down there, too. I know Cam's from down there. A lot of guys are from down there.
Exactly. Most definitely. No, Atlanta definitely creates some sheer athletes. But it's one of those things like Atlanta, Florida, Texas, like those guys' mindsets, when you're around all that talent becomes what's ordinary and average. So I never saw anybody that was necessarily, oh my gosh, or had that exceptional wow factor. To me, these were just guys like, oh yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's fast. Like he's tall. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything out of the extraordinary until you start going to different places and other teams, and then you start noticing like, man, I guess we are better than we thought we were. Or I just never noticed that. You know what I mean?
So kind of taking that and going deeper from a mindset standpoint, from a mental standpoint, we obviously we're watching a physical game, but there's a mental side to sports. And football I've always been fascinated by because it's an alpha-dominated sport where guys with size and strength and speed typically flourish. For you, what was your approach mentally to the game? You could answer as a whole or on each level of competition, and maybe how did you mature your mind and mold your mind to let yourself know, all right, I can play with these guys and I can beat these guys?
Right. I think over time I started gaining that confidence through competition, whether that be, practice against my own team or versus other people. mat drills, early morning sprints, weightlifting in the gym. All of a sudden, everything became a competition. Everything we did, there was some form of competition in it. So then it became so natural to compete in everything that we did, from, oh, I can beat you at practice, or I can get to practice earlier than you, or I can jump higher than you. Everything was a competition. So then when you get your mindset and just to a competitive nature, whether or not it's sports, job force, corporate America, you are always fired and ready to go at 100% at all times. And I think that mindset is what really allowed me to really tap into that next level that I might not have done had I not changed my mindset into a competitive way.
Wow. So for you always had that was the norm, obviously, from an athletic standpoint. The athletes were all over the place. Now, when you would have challenges on the field or outside the field or obstacles, how would you, and maybe this is part of your makeup of who where you came from and your family and upbringing, but when you would have obstacles or things that got in the way, how would you handle challenges as an athlete? I guess both in life and in pads.
So challenges, challenges was never anything new to me. But I think life and anything that you go through is all about perspective. So someone that labels something as a challenge, it's up to their discretion of whether or not that's a challenge to them.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So then you just your threshold grows over time based on the experiences that you've experienced in life and on the field. So after a while on the field, after, an offensive line throws you down as many times as you can, you start to stop saying, okay, well, this guy's beating me. You start to change your mindset. It's like I didn't come all the way from Atlanta to let another person stop me from getting to somewhere I'm trying to get. So then it became personal. It became, okay, put the pads aside. This is mano y mano. I'm trying to do something that I believe in, which is sack a quarterback. You're trying to stop me and say I'm not able to do that.
Right.
Well, it just got real personal between us.
Oh! I love it.
With that mindset alone, it didn't matter if the guy was your teammate or it was a competitor. Everybody was stopping you for what you wanted to do and where you wanted to get. And that was just overall life. So everybody became a speed bump. Everybody became something in your path that you just had to either go through, go around, chop, club, rip, and that's on and off the field. So then it's just how it kind of rolls. It just rolled from then on.
So when Kobe talks about how the defender is irrelevant because he's so dialed in to the basket and get into the cup, is it similar as a pass rusher when you see the quarterback that the guard or the tackle or the running back picking you up, whoever it may be, it becomes irrelevant because you're so dialed in to exactly the target that you're going after?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's what makes guys like Von Miller and, his performance on the Super Bowl.
Right.
You have to understand the sport as, yes, it is a mathematical equation. There's an offensive scheme, there's a defensive scheme, but there's one thing that's missing between the both of those. There's a human element.
Oh, of course.
And it doesn't necessarily explain how much heart the guy that's on the defensive scheme has over the offensive scheme or vice versa. So at the end of the day, it's all about that on the field. The schemes work. In offensive, you're supposed to score a touchdown every play.
Right.
On defense, you're supposed to stop the pass every play. So how is it that these things aren't able to happen? Well, that's different. That missing element that's missing when Kobe sees the hoop, yeah, the defender is irrelevant. I'm trying to do something, and you're in my way. So you got to move. And if you're not going to move, I'm going to move you. Something's going to happen. It's by any means necessary. We're going to get there, because I got 10 other guys depending on me to get back there.
Kind of going back to your last statement about answering about, how you deal with obstacles and whatnot. I'm constantly listening to this audio book called The Power of Now. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's a fascinating book about being present and in the moment. And so the author, Eckhart Tolle, says that there are no such thing as problems, just situations to be dealt with now or later. So I'm relating that to sports and the present moment. Do you feel like the athletes that are most successful play to play, game to game, do you attribute that to them being present and keeping their mind clear and just dealing with the task at hand rather than ruminating on the previous play or projecting into the next quarter?
I think it's a mixture of both. I do feel like there are some athletes at the end of the day, they are just far talented than anything around them within arm's distance, that it might not be as deep for them as it is for another person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like guys like Deshaun Jackson for, the Redskins, the guy is just beyond fast.
Right.
So it doesn't really have to get too personal with that guy like that. He's just an athlete, period.
I got you.
You also do have guys who they really have to dial in because what they need to exert might be very comparable to the person on the other side of them. So what's going to separate them is going to be their mindset.
Now for you, obviously an athletic individual, but it seems like your mind really separated you from the pack. Would you agree that your mindset was something you give a lot of credit and a testament to all the success you had in the sport of football?
Yeah, most definitely. Had everything gone the way I wanted, ideally, and expected it to do, when I graduated, I expected to come out and, my first contact was from the Texans, the Broncos, as well as I think that it was just those two, Texans, the Broncos, and I got a couple letters from like the Raiders and Green Bay, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it was the year of the lockout. So from that point, I wasn't able to speak with any team because of the collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
From that point, I wasn't able to get any calls or anything. So I had to kind of be like, my agent says I should expect a call, and then draft day comes, and all the rounds go by. I can get one single call. So you get kind of in panic mode because you're like, man, I was born in 1988. You're going to tell me exactly 25 years go by, and this thing has to capsize on the year that I want to go pro?
Oh, my gosh, Bryan.
So you just kind of like, man, like somebody's out to get me. From that point on, either you got to turn over on your back and say you got me, or you got to start developing your mind and saying, well, what's next? You got to be hungry to do the next thing that's going to put you in the best position to be successful in case an opportunity comes. And from there, I really just had to get my mind right and say, well, I got to find a place to work because I got to pay my bills. I got to find a place to train, so I got to get a job so I can pay for training, as well as I got to find a place to eat. Those were my three main focuses. Anything else, from girls, from family members, from anything else, it could not be in that formula in order for me to reach to the league. I did not make it to the pros until 2 years after the lockout.
Now that's amazing because I guarantee you there was some more guys in your spot that had some interest from teams during that obviously unique off season with the lockout that probably didn't persevere through that. So for you, I mean, obviously it catapulted you onto a whole nother level of just a unique story because now here you are today, and I don't want to get right into what you're doing now because I want to talk a little bit more about your path, but how did you during those 2 years stay up and stay positive? Did you have a plan? Did you change your plan 7-8 times? Did you just have the end goal in mind because you're a visionary and you knew you were going to make a roster and then you landed with the Panthers? How did that kind of 2 years go? You can elaborate as much as you want or as little, but I'm very fascinated with.
It initially started when I got an opportunity from the Chicago Rush out in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
That was the first football opportunity I got. I looked at it as an opportunity to stay relevant, perfect my craft, even though it was at a different level. But, hey, it was, in my opinion, it was professional football.
Right.
Getting paid to play.
Absolutely.
So I packed up all my stuff because I was working at Carrabba's and Under Armour as part-time jobs, and then just kind of working out and waiting for a call.
Right.
From there, moved out to Chicago, packed all my stuff, threw it in the trunk, and moved my entire life to Chicago. And I drove my car, and I brought all my stuff because I had every 100% expectation that I was going to make the team. In my head, there was no way that somebody was going to stop me from making the team.
I love it.
Things didn't work out that way. I got cut in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So from there, I'm like, okay, well, my stuff is in a U-Haul, and I don't have a job right now, and the rent's coming up for the U-Haul, but I don't even know, should I go back home? But I don't really want to go back home and have to live with my parents. But I don't want to go back to the college campus because I'm going to feel somewhat like a failure. I had no answers for you at all.
Wow.
At all. So the next thing I did, I called up my parents. I'm like, man, Dad, like, I don't know, dude. I got to come home. So I packed as much stuff as I could fit in my truck. The rest of my furniture, my bed, my clothes, my shoes, my everything, posters, everything I had accumulated through college, I left in the U-Haul and just said, well, you know, I'll just come up with the payment within 4 weeks from now, and I'll come back here eventually. I never went back to get that stuff. They eventually took it, sold it, and I never saw that stuff again.
Wow.
On the drive back to Atlanta, I get a call from a team out in Lehigh Valley, which was an indoor football league.
Right.
And it was an opportunity to play. We didn't make much money, but, you know, I didn't care. It was football until I can get to the league, because I honestly believed in my skill level from what I learned and the guys that I was surrounded at William & Mary, and how elite of a bunch of, you know, how successful those guys were, and the things that the conversations that me and those guys would have, and just how I knew I was able to keep up with these guys, and, you know, we would all feed off of each other. I knew there, out of 32 teams, there was one slot, and there was room for me to play. Had to be.
Yeah.
Even if it was a practice squad, it's impossible for me to be the worst player that I cannot make a team. So that was kind of my mindset. And then from there, I traveled from Lehigh Valley, got called up to the Pittsburgh Tower, was on their team for about 3 to 4 months, got cut, did about 4, 5, 6 CFL workouts, killed them, never got a call, went back home and got on with the Georgia Force, played with them. Didn't necessarily play because, you know, I was just kind of the new guy on campus. But, you know, my mindset, to me, it didn't make any sense why I wasn't playing. So that was enough sense for me to keep going.
It's amazing.
Throughout that whole time, I was always emailing every NFL team out of all the 32 teams, my film, what I was doing, my update, my situation, my relevant film, etc. Every single day for a year and a half. I was doing that.
Phenomenal.
The way I figured out the NFL team emails were, I would go onto their site and I would see the breakdown of their domain. So let's say it's Tennessee Titans. You could go to the bottom and see how to contact the ticket holder, and all the domains would always be the same for an entire company.
Of course. I mean? Yeah. That's genius.
So the Titans would say, well, it could be info@titans.com, or it could be bluetitan.com, whatever the ending domain was.
Right.
I wrote down for that team. Then the next thing I did, I went to Wikipedia and Googled who all the current coaches were. So then I could break down their names. And from there, I go back to domain and see how the emails were broken down for whatever email it was that you were contacting for ticket offices, etc. So John A. Smith might be JASM@titans.com.
Wow.
So I did that for all the NFL teams' coaches that were there, and I sent that. I'm talking about. It took me about 6 months to get every team.
Right.
But from there, I was emailing guys like Bill Belichick and getting responses back.
Oh, Bryan, that's unbelievable, man.
The head coaches. And I did that for a year and a half, and that's exactly how the Carolina Panther fell into my lap, because I reached out to that guy, and he saw my film because I had broke down his email. And the next thing I know, they got me on a flight to a minicamp, and that was a minicamp.
I mean, bringing it full circle, you talk about the sport being mathematical, and here he is in the lab breaking down the math for what emails to send, and he finds himself in minicamp. When you got to minicamp, all that, and I don't even want to call it uncertainty, because it seems like from Chicago to Lehigh, you had it all the whole time in your head. Your belief was you were going to make it to the league, and you did. So when you got there, you know, you hear athletes say, I never thought I would be here. Was it quite the opposite at that time? I knew I was going to be here.
I knew. No, I'm not even gonna say like my mindset was like, oh yeah, I knew I was gonna be here. I was beyond ecstatic.
Wow.
Because it was 2 years, and I had met so many guys that fell by the wayside and gave up, and were in camps and struggling, like literally not knowing what to do, because football is life for a lot of people, and if you're not doing what you feel like your purpose is on life, you really don't know what you're lost in this planet. So,
of course.
Football, if that's the mindset you have to play football. You have to believe that is what you're on earth to do in order to be successful, unless you're just 100% sure athlete like we spoke about earlier.
Right.
So it was breathtaking, man. I mean, you're walking to Bank of America Stadium, and I roll up there in a Prius, like a 2003, and I roll up, and you're seeing cars, Maseratis, Bentleys, Beamers, and I'm just like, wow, like they want me here, like. That last name, the little guy from South Florida, they want my talent in this huge stadium, and
wow.
Like they want to. It was breathtaking, dude. But I never showed it because you don't necessarily want to give off the vibe as if you don't expect to be here.
No, yeah, I meant more internally, not like you're broadcasting it to everyone.
Yeah, most definitely. Internally, I was happy, dude. Even my father, who kept it 100% honest to me, he's like, Bryan, I'm not gonna lie to you, like. I was waiting for you to give up. There's no way. I did not think you were going to make it to the league.
Wow.
And that alone lets me know if my own father could feel that way. Not that he doesn't believe in his son, but my dad is very analytical and he's very factual.
Right.
And that will keep my feet on the ground. So I might believe I can touch the moon tomorrow, but he's going to be like, look, dude, this is the mathematical equation. No, you're not.
Well, I mean, the percentages, obviously, the odds are against anybody to make it to that level of competition.
Exactly. So from that point on, dude, it's just like I literally beat all odds. Like there are a certain amount of people in Minicamp, they called me and said, I'm taking a slot. That was huge for me.
Oh, my God.
That let me know I could do anything in life.
So did you have a favorite moment from that entire experience at Minicamp with the Carolina Panthers?
Man, the entire experience, like really seeing what happened, like just seeing everything. Like I was the first one in the film room, I was the first one to practice, I was the last one to leave.
Wow.
Everything perfect, because I said I spent 2 years trying to get here. There's no way I'm going to sleep and be late, or there's no way I want the coaches to see me over the top, want this more than anything. And if I don't make it based on giving 100%, I'm okay to walk away from the sport at the end of this.
Now, looking back on your journey, I'm going to compare it to a kid growing up who's just handed, let's say, a laptop or a video game or a pair of shoes, rather than a kid working and buying those pair of shoes or a laptop himself. Similar to your journey, you weren't handed a draft slot. You weren't handed anything. You earned it. Looking back, are you a lot more proud of your journey than, let's say, a much easier? Not that any journey is easy to the league, but because you had the will to continue on and persevere through those 2 years, are you more proud of this journey than you would, let's say, just going 5th or 6th round and automatically, thinking you would make a squad?
Yeah, I am, and I think I'll think myself, at the point where I decided to hang up the helmet in the cleat moving forward. I think that process is what made me who I am today. Had I been handed a draft spot, or prior to free agent and moved on, there's no way that mentally I would have been prepared based on my capabilities and what I can and cannot do based on film. There's no way that I would have been ready to walk into an NFL camp and make the 53-man roster. My mind wasn't there. Physically, I was there. My mind was not ready to make a slot. So
wow.
I would have been anywhere bouncing from one team to another, getting cut, getting picked up, getting cut. I would have been in that vicious cycle versus doing it the way that I did. Now, everything, there are no question marks. There's no, I hope I make the 53. Now it's like, okay, now it's time to go get my spot. I didn't have that dog in me until I got through all that stuff.
We're talking with Bryan Jean-Pierre. Unbelievable story by way of the College of William and Mary. Made it to the Carolina Panthers. And now segueing into your own craft and your own business. Now, you call yourself just a trainer after speaking with you for 20 minutes. There is no way, Bryan, you are just a trainer with that story and that mindset. So segueing into your company now, JeanPierre Fitness, obviously you getting to be on the other side of the coin and getting to motivate play. Obviously the athlete in you will never leave. You're an athlete till the day, you transition, but now getting to coach and mentor and lead other athletes, whether they're trying to make the NFL or they just want to shed a few pounds. How did you kind of get to this spot of, well, okay, I'm going to dedicate my life to others and I'm going to take what I learned in football and all sports and package it into this unbelievable fitness, essentially, program, and now become a servant leader in the world of athletics?
It was one of those things where I didn't know that is what I was going to do. It kind of, they always tell you, like, you'll figure out what you need to do in life, and I'm such a visionary that I expect to be doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing, but
right.
You're missing the element that you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So that being said, I thought, from there, I'm like, well, I left a great school. I've got a major in economics. I've got a minor or a double major in economics and sociology.
Wow.
Let's go do something with the numbers game. Let's get on Wall Street. My dad was the one that pushed me to do econ, so let's go make something happen. And
yeah.
Football kind of put me at a disadvantage in the workforce because I'm 2 years removed from any type of job position. So now I don't have work experience, and I'm taking jobs that are going to be, anything under 25, 30, 40, 50,000
right.
with zero job experience. So then it was no different than the NFL. I had to start finding a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I started serving tables, man. I served tables all through college football. I didn't serve during the season and worked on Sundays and was working. So it was nothing for me to always be working.
Right.
The bills got to get paid.
Right.
And from there, I kind of tried to do, I'd reached out to Northwestern Mutual. I tried to get in medical device sales. I tried to get in the on and off premise liquor distributor sales. I tried to get in corporate with recruiting as a corporate recruiter. Nothing worked for my personality. I mean, I would make a lot of friends, and I was one of the most enthusiastic in every setting you put me in. I'd kill interviews left and right.
Oh, I imagine so.
I just could not wake up and jump in traffic, sit at a desk, and get off at 5 and go to the gym, and you tell me that was going to be the rest of my life. It wasn't working. So I would start a job 6 months, quit. Start a job 8 months, quit. Start a job 3 months, quit. Walk out. It just, nothing worked. But the one thing I always knew I'd be successful once I found it is what I needed to do. Every job I ever left, every manager and every coworker I ever worked with said you're going to do something. You just haven't found it. But whatever you find it, you're going to be very, very successful at it.
Wow.
Next thing you know, I end up in the fitness industry, and I started off with 6 clients not too long ago. I started this company maybe 6-7 months ago.
That's amazing, Bryan. If you're listening out there, please follow B_Jean-Pierre, JeanPierre. You're almost up to 8,000 followers. You're rocking and rolling. It's an inspiring page. I took a glance before we hopped on the mic. Very inspiring for only little over half a year in, Bryan.
Yeah, most definitely, man. So from there, I started 6 months ago with maybe 6 clients, and I had always noticed I had an eye for good, clean marketing. There's something about billboards that intrigued me, videography that intrigued me,
right.
Ads, stuff like that. So in Instagram, I knew that I could really focus on what Instagram had to offer. I could build a business strictly off of that. From there, I taught myself how to use a camera. I taught myself how to use Final Cut, Photoshop, any type of videography software. I taught myself using YouTube and books how to do my own films and photography. And then I knew that, I knew I could be a good trainer. Well, let me go get certified.
Right.
But with training, it's 90% mental and maybe 10% physical. So I knew that I had the mindset to instill some type of motivation in everybody. Now I just need to get the other 10%. Well, that was easy because I've been getting trained my entire life. So now it's just on the other side, like you said.
Well, now for you, obviously, your business is growing and you're so new. I mean, let's call it another year and a half. Obviously, your business is going to continue to expand. Just talking with you, you're very articulate. You sound like you can take a mic in front of a room and put on a show. Is there a public speaking in your future? Is there a book in your future? I mean, is there any limit to what you can really do on this earth moving forward as a thought leader and an entrepreneur in your own fitness business?
I can definitely see an opening for that. I'm actually going to be opening my own gym here.
Oh, let's go, baby! Congratulations.
Appreciate it. So I'm going to be right in Buckhead, Atlanta. I'm looking to be opening June 1st. It's going to be our grand opening. So I've been working with contractors, realtors, and I've got a couple investors involved, et cetera, helping build out a new circuit style of training that get as many people into our building, training for an hour, touching on all the things that I think that are important as far as losing weight and nutrition, get them out of there. So, yeah, I mean, 6 months ago, dude, I did not have a job. I was jobless. My dad was paying my rent.
That's amazing.
6 months later,
but this is the world. We're in 2016, baby. This is the world of, if you're creative and you're innovative and you're a visionary, then there should not be a single person that tells you what you can or cannot, will not do. Because if you have the vision, you now have the tools. You got Instagram. You taught yourself how to use a camera. And obviously, everything you learned along the way as an athlete, I'm sure, has contributed to your craft. Now, me personally, is there a better person to coach athletes out there that are coming from D1 or D2 schools or 1AA that may not be highly touted, that may not get invited to the combine? We got to send them to you, Bryan. I mean, is there a better person to serve from a mental standpoint, that journey? Because it may not be that first offseason that they get a call. It may not even be the second offseason. But for your story and your success, I feel like you're the guy to be able to coach and lead those guys. So there can be another Bryan Jean-Pierre.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, just watching YouTubes of like Eric Thomas and like these guys, man, the motivation, and also what's his name? Giovanni Ruffin from East Carolina was a running back who came out when I came out the year. He's the one who started that huge video that had Eric Thomas in the background, and he was like doing.
Oh yeah, of course, that's fame. I've seen Eric Thomas speak a couple of times in person, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Where he's in the water. Yes.
In the water and doing all that training. That guy, he graduated the same year I did.
Wow.
He just got signed to the Seahawks last month.
Get out of town.
That was over 3 years ago. When there's no way anybody has not given up. This guy, 3.5 years, just got signed.
Wow.
There's nobody can tell me you can and cannot do anything. But you really have to ask yourself, do you really, really want it? Wanting it isn't doing it 60 or 70%. If you really believe with the tools that you're given that you can be successful at what you're trying to do, you need to be spending every breaking breath, every hour. And what you need to do, focus on that. Anything shy of 100%, you do not deserve what you're asking for, period. And I'd say the same thing for my clients. If you are not going to eat properly, if you are not going to skip a workout, if you're going to give me 90% during your 60-minute session, at the end of the month, when it's time to weigh in and check measurements, you do not deserve anything you're asking for because you didn't give me 100%.
I have never been so fired up on a pot. I gotta go run a mile after this. I have to go run. I gotta do something with all this energy. You're firing me up over here, Bryan.
Good, man.
Well, I appreciate it, and I want to let you go. I know you're a busy man. One last question for you. Obviously, sports teaches us so many valuable life lessons. Doesn't have to be football, but what's something in the world of sports that has taught you something in life that either you will never forget or something you still carry with you today?
Competition, man. Competition makes the world go round. Competition makes businesses come out with marketing schemes. Competition is the big billboard when you drive down the highway. It's the big schools, and they show you how many rings they won. Life is a competition. So if you're not first, you're last. And anytime I've ever walked into a room or an interview or a setting or a job, I want to go down in history as being the best. I don't want to be number 2. I don't want to be okay. I want to be great at everything that I touch. So with that competitive nature, if you apply that to any facet of your life, just try to be 1. Don't try to be 2. Don't try to be in the pack. You got to try to be number 1. So follow whatever number 1 is doing and do something even more than what he's doing and take his place.
It's amazing. He's Bryan Jean-Pierre. Again, his Instagram is B_JeanPierre. Bryan, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish we could go on for another hour, but I know we both got lives to live. But oh my goodness, it's been an amazing half hour plus with you. I so appreciate the time.
Most definitely, man. Definitely appreciate you reaching out and giving me a platform where I can speak my story as well as let you hear my story as well. And just keep up the work. Keep it up.
Absolutely. I will do my best to share your story, and I hopefully someone out there is inspired from our conversation. And of course I'm gonna be looking out for that book or that some sort of additional media. If I see you start on a hike or somewhere, fire me up on a little selfie video, I'm not gonna be surprised, and I will go run a mile right after.
Go. Awesome, man. Glad I could do it.
All right, Bryan, I appreciate you, man.
All right, man. Take care.
All right.